Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Ramin Yazdanpanah and I have the honor to present the keynote for our 2023 Sunshine State Virtual Conference. Together we rise, strategies for sustaining professional growth and well-being. So I'm currently in Gainesville, Florida, and if you're able, if you would please share in the chat where you are right now so we can start to connect with our community of practice here to see where we are all located. While you're doing that, I'd like to thank the organizers and board members of the Sunshine State TESOL Virtual Conference for your hard work, your dedication, and leadership in creating this space where we can share and grow from each other's experiences and expertise. The theme of the conference is strengthening communities of practice. And this is exactly what conferences like ours can do. So as we all know, any worthy goal should have a clear and achievable objective or objectives. And our objectives through this keynote session are to apply strategies for engaging in mindful and intentional professional development by reflecting, envisioning, and sharing how we will participate in cultivating communities of practice during our Sunshine State TESOL conference and beyond. So how does that sound? I can't hear you, so please type in the chat yes with an exclamation point if you're on board. Okay, since we're all getting to know each other here in this virtual space, I'd like you to write in the chat 3 words to describe yourself, as well as how these identities influence you as an educator. So I'll start. Okay. My first identity is Cuban, Iranian, American. So my mother is Cuban, my father is Iranian. I should throw in Floridian in there because I'm Florida man. I lived in Miami, I've lived in Tallahassee, I'm here in Gainesville. I love the state of Florida. So those kind of identities definitely affect my, I think, decision to become a multilingual, multicultural educator, as well as a lot of other areas of my life that we might get into here. So yes, those things as an educator, really as a global educator, I should say. I've had the privilege to work with amazing students and colleagues all around the world, within the United States, Spain, Vietnam, Turkey, Latin America, the Middle East, Central Asia. So I'm definitely a global educator, and that has influenced my understanding of myself as well as the greater world, and really the importance of having diverse perspectives, experiences, voices within any space to see the bigger picture, again, of the world and of ourselves. And finally, as a world musician. So you might have heard some music in the beginning, in the first slide, the introduction. That is a song called Vamos Destino. And Vamos Destino means let's go destiny. And so that is my mantra, I guess, for this presentation, for this conference, is for us to envision where we would like to be, where we are now, but where we'd like to go, who we would like to become, right? How can we create our destiny and manifest that? And so one way that I do this is through music. I call it edutainment. So the song that you heard there is with my band, the Maharaja Flamenco Trio. And I think playing that genre of music, the instruments that I play, the didgeridoo, the cajon, world percussion, those all, also kind of reflect my love for world cultures, my utilization of them to express myself, as well as to utilize them in my work as an educator, whether it be in the English language classroom, for exchange, but really to express who I am as a person, to hopefully allow for others to express who they are, right? And when we can make these kind of connections, when we can understand who we are beyond being an educator, beyond being a student, who we are outside of the classroom, in my experience, that leads to greater openness, greater possibilities to be vulnerable, and which leads to deeper connections and trust, and just feeling comfortable and open to exchange ideas, to make mistakes, right? To learn from them and to support each other in a community of learning, a community of teaching, just a community of being. So I can't see the chat right now, but I hope that you have been able to put your identities in the chat. I hope that you can read through some of those identities, and again, how these identities influence you as an educator. What are these funds of knowledge that you bring into the classroom that you can leverage and utilize to best connect with your students, with your colleagues, and to begin to build a community of teaching and learning? Okay, so let's shift gears a bit to see how we think about the following questions and prime our minds for discussing professional development specifically, and just learning in general. So the first chat question that I'd like you to respond to is this one. I want you to either type agree or disagree in the chat. So our ability to learn stops at a certain age. Agree or disagree? Let's go ahead. I'll just give you a second to type in there, agree or disagree. And the second question, in the long term, which is more important to achieving a goal? Is it focusing on the product, or is it focusing on the process? So type either product or process in the chat. And I'll give you a second to type that. And so while you're typing this, and when you're finished typing, just go ahead and look at the chat, see what we think about our ability to stop learning at a certain age, who agrees, who disagrees there, and what's the most important thing to focus on in the long term to achieve our goals, product or process. Okay, so both of the previous questions relate to how we and others conceptualize learning. The terms fixed mindset and growth mindset provide two sides of really the same coin. So let's look a bit about how we can understand a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset has these following characteristics. So the goal is really to look smart, right? We're trying to look smart. And I think we're all, I would say, guilty of faking understanding to portray an image of confidence and expertise. The fake it till you make it approach might be useful at times. However, it does often prevent opportunities to admit a gap in understanding and an opportunity to learn. So a fixed mindset is also one where we are more focused on the product than the effort. Now, the issue with this is that research has shown that when focusing more on product than our effort, our response to setbacks tends to be to give up when things get hard or when we inevitably fail at something. As a result, overall academic and other forms of performance tend to be low. As educators, mentors, and coaches, providing feedback on only performance can unintentionally reinforce a fixed mindset by praising product over process. Now, conversely, when we have a growth mindset, our goal is to value effort over product. Consequently, this leads us to respond to setbacks and as a result, engage in the process more sustainably and achieve higher performance in the long run. As educators, praising process in addition, I would say, to performance can help to establish and reinforce a growth mindset. We can apply this approach to our own learning, right? Our own professional development, as well as our students' learning. And for those of you who have kids, nephews, nieces, grandkids, you can apply this approach with them as well. Okay, so let's look at some examples of fixed mindset feedback versus growth mindset feedback. Good job. You really aced that quiz. You know, you really need to study more so you pass the exam and improve your grade. So we can see with these two fixed mindset feedback examples, it's not that they're bad, right? We love to tell somebody or even to receive feedback that says good job, right? And we probably have provided feedback that says, you really need to study more. Very common to do. The issue with this is that this reinforces this focus on product, and it really ignores any kind of feedback on process. So let's look at what some examples of growth mindset feedback could be. I know it isn't easy, but I can see all the effort you are putting into learning from your awesome errors. Good job on completing this first draft on time. Now we can see what you're doing well and what you can improve. So we can see from these growth mindset feedback examples. The first one, we acknowledge that the struggle, right? The struggle is real. But we also acknowledge the effort. And when we're doing this, we are reinforcing that, right? We are reinforcing that effort. We are acknowledging it, we're praising it, we're taking that into account when we are assessing even somebody or even our own effort. So we are reinforcing that, hey, it's really about the process. It's not always going to be about the product. As we're learning something new, of course we're not going to be perfect. We might not be perfect for a very long time. And this is why it's so important to reinforce the practice, right? So that when we come up against obstacles, when we do fail inevitably, we have that resilience to keep going. And we are just proud of ourselves and the dopamine, let's say, right, that we get, the positive feeling that we get is from the engaging in the process. And the second one here is the same. Good job on completing the first draft on time. We're praising their effort, right, to complete the job. In this case, it was like an essay, and that they did it on time, right? So that's important as well in order to get timely feedback. And so we also recognize that we can analyze our effort, our performance, and the importance of analyzing our effort in the learning process, right? To analyze both what we're doing well as what we can improve on. And this is really a lifelong kind of journey, right? So when we're focusing on the process, we get more comfortable with that this is a lifelong learning process. When we're just focusing on product and we're finished with it, we really kind of just end there, right? And we think that this is maybe we have like an artificial ceiling that we've placed on our growth. All right, so I want to share with you some resources and some research that are pretty amazing. And I think that they're very important to get a clear context of really what a growth mindset is and how to develop it. And that is an additional mindset that pairs with growth mindset, and that's stress can be enhancing mindset. So I'm providing these links for you so you can explore them on your own time, share them with your colleagues. And I want to share with you the first link here, which is David Yeager's research explores an intervention that protects adolescents from stress. Just to give you an overview of this research that Yeager and his team are doing on stress can be enhancing mindset. So just if you can bear with me, this is just I'm gonna read some things verbatim, but I think it's worth it. So this is the article. You can see it's recent here. This was a paper published in Nature, which is really like the gold standard for scientific research. And this was the protocol. We're going to go into the protocol here a little bit more, but This was a 30-minute self-administered online training module to protect adolescents from unhealthy responses to stress. The related mental health consequences suggests research, right, funded by the National Institute of Health. Scientists designed the training module known as the Synergistic Mindset Intervention to empower adolescents to harness both stressful events and stress responses to support their goals. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over here to the background. So adolescents today are experiencing record high levels of stress-related anxiety and feelings of sadness or depression. Conventional guidance to avoid stressful situations can be disadvantageous as it leads many teenagers to disengage from potentially beneficial stressors. Potentially beneficial stressors, such as demanding academic coursework. Moreover, the social isolation and uncertainty about the future caused by the COVID-19 pandemic have created unavoidable stress. To fulfill the need for tools to help adolescents engage positively with stressors, researchers designed the synergistic mindset intervention to simultaneously target two sets of attitudes or beliefs, a growth mindset and a stress can be enhancing mindset. The growth mindset centers on the belief that intellectual, athletic, and other abilities can be developed with effort and support from others, inspiring adolescents to think of difficult challenges as opportunities for self-improvement. The stress can be enhancing mindset encourages adolescents to view psychological stress responses, such as sweaty palms or racing heart and deeper breathing, as helpful because they mobilize energy and deliver oxygenated blood to the brain and tissues. Okay, so the results. Researchers conducted 6 related studies to assess the effects of the synergistic mindsets intervention on the stress experienced by high schoolers and undergraduate college students. Okay, so all focus on educational stressors such as taking a time quiz, giving a speech to classmates, or keeping up with academic work. This should all sound familiar of activities we do with our students or that we engage in ourselves. Following the synergistic mindset intervention, study participants reported less negative views of stressful academic events and their responses to those stressors. The intervention also improved cardiovascular responses to a stress test and reduced levels of cortisol, a hormone produced in response to stress. Furthermore, the findings suggest that the intervention improved participants' psychological well-being and academic success and reduced anxiety during the 2020 COVID-19 university closures. Analyses indicated that the combination of the two mindsets is more powerful than either of the component mindsets alone. Overall, the intervention's effects were greatest for participants who had negative mindsets prior to completing the online module, and I would include a fixed mindset in there as well. However, some benefits, including lower cortisol levels and improving academic achievement, were apparent irrespective of our participants' prior mindset. So the significance. Our studies suggest that we might not teach adolescents that they're too fragile to overcome difficult struggles, but we might instead provide them with resources and guidance they need to unleash their skills and creativity in addressing big problems, the authors conclude. They note that the synergistic mindset intervention could, in principle, be scaled nationally at low cost to help reduce adolescent stress. And I would include there, for us who are working with adults, this is true for adults, and I would say this is true for ourselves, right? As we engage in learning that can be uncomfortable, that can be time-consuming, and pushing ourselves to even grow professionally through presentations, sharing our work, and taking leadership roles that can also be stressful. Okay, so as we've just seen, research studies have shown that simply using a growth mindset protocol with students, colleagues, ourselves, anyone who we are engaging and learning with, to anticipate stress in learning enhances our ability to cope with it and even leverage that stress, understanding its natural and necessary role in the learning process. So this is a growth mindset protocol. It was mentioned in the article. But I wanted to kind of provide it here for you because this is something that we can apply immediately. We can apply immediately within our own growth mindset cultivation, as well as with our students and colleagues. So the first is to reflect and recall. So reflect and recall a time when you experienced stress while learning something new. What was that stress related to, right? So if we can reflect and recall a time when we experienced stress, and maybe even how we kind of got through it and were able to achieve our goal, or even a time when maybe we were stressed about something and it prevented us from learning. So that's just kind of setting the stage. The next is rationale. And the rationale is just to discuss what we've been discussing here. And really that's our brain's ability to continue to learn. And one way you can discuss this is by discussing neuroplasticity, right? That's the nervous system's ability to change in response to experience. And that this brain change can occur throughout the entire lifespan, right? From early in life all the way through our people in our 90s, right? So yes, it can kind of slow down around age 25, but that doesn't mean that our ability to learn and for our brain to expand and to create new neural networks, this effect of neuroplasticity, it never stops, right? As long as our learning is intentional and focused. Okay, the next here is reframing. So reframing stress as a natural, necessary aspect of learning. Yes, it's not always pleasant, but this is really important because many times students feel that maybe they're the only one. They're the only one that's not getting it. They're the only one that's struggling. We don't like to admit that, right? Oftentimes. If we can reframe this and say everyone struggles, everyone feels this, everyone feels stress, right? And if we can create an environment that supports students in that process. Also, I have to say, as a language educator, also understanding our students' proficiency levels, what their abilities are, and being able to differentiate instruction that is at a level that is appropriate for them, but also pushes them, right? So that's the Krashen's I+1, input plus a little bit more difficult to actually provoke, to stimulate these stress hormones that heighten our ability to think, to problem solve in a supportive kind of environment, right? So reframing how we understand stress and our response to it. And the next is to praise, right? So praise the process. We discussed that already. So if we're praising the process, the effort, the struggle, the coping with it and learning from, I call them beautiful mistakes, but you can call them, anything that you want to. I try to reframe and praise errors as a beautiful thing, as an important thing, not only to learn from your own, but also to be open to learn from others. So before moving on, I'd like to provide a bit more insight on creating habits that support a growth mindset and put the struggle of learning a bit more into perspective. So building habits that are aligned with our goals and breaking those that don't are an important aspect to our professional development as educators, as well as our students as lifelong learners. As we all know, creating a new habit can seem daunting, and breaking out of a fixed mindset towards a growth mindset can be easier said than done. This is especially true the more fossilized our habits become. I'd like to share this short clip of the video summary of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear that provides a clear rationale of why starting small through tiny or atomic actions that we can apply consistently is so powerful towards learning, growth, and accomplishing anything we set our mind to.
Imagine a plane taking off and traveling from New York to Los Angeles. Just before takeoff, you adjust the plane just slightly by 3 degrees or around 80 inches. If you were to keep flying in a straight line, you would end up closer to Tijuana in Mexico than in your intended destination of Los Angeles. And the same goes for our habits. Tiny changes in our habits can change the trajectory of our lives in ways that we can't even notice until many years into the future looking back, in both good ways and bad. You are your habits. The power of atomic habits. A slight change in your daily habits can guide your life to a very different destination. Massive action versus 1% improvements. Far too often we convince ourselves that massive success is only possible through massive action in any goal we are pursuing. We expect ourselves to make some quantum leap or momentous improvement that will gain others' attention. However, it is the tiny improvements that aren't even noticeable at first that create incredible change. Let's look deeper into the math. 1% better every day for a year will compound to 37 times better, but 1% worse every day over a year will bring you close to zero. Your habits can compound against you in the form of things like stress or negative self-talk, or they can compound for you in the form of things like knowledge, productivity, skills, and relationships. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. The truth about progress. When you start any endeavor in your life, here is what you think should happen: linear progress. But here is what actually happens. Notice this section here in the beginning. Small changes in our progress are not even noticeable. James Clear refers to this part of the graph as the valley of disappointment. You've done so much, you've put in so much effort, and you can barely see any results. This is where most people fail and slip back into their old routines. The most powerful outcomes of any compounding process are delayed, so patience is required. Goals versus systems. Forget about goals, focus on systems instead. A goal is the result you want to accomplish. Systems deal with processes that lead to the results. The conventional wisdom suggests that the best way to achieve anything we want in life, be it getting into better shape, building a successful business, or spending more time with family, is to set specific, realistic goals. But if you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your systems, would you still succeed? The author of this book argues that you would. Here are some problems with only having goals. Successful and unsuccessful people share the same goals, so therefore the goal cannot be what differentiates winners from losers. Achieving a goal only changes your life for that moment in time. Goals can create an either-or conflict. Either you achieve the goal and succeed, or you don't and you're a failure, even if you are making progress in the right direction. When you achieve a goal, what do you do after? If your goal was running the local marathon, chances are after completing it, your motivation will quickly fade and you will just slip back into your old routines. Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. I encourage you to watch the whole thing. I encourage you to read the book as well, Atomic Habits by James Clear. But these are 3 quotes that I'd like to reinforce. So the first, a slight change in your daily habits can guide your life to a very different destination. The second, success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations. And finally, goals are good for setting direction, but systems are best for making progress. And I think all of these quotes here really focus us back to what we're discussing and what we're here for. And that is to continue to develop ourselves professionally, to continue to cultivate a growth mindset, and to establish a system, right, or a process to where we can support our own professional development, support our students' development, support our colleagues' development, and really engage in a community. And that's what we're here for, right? To engage and to strengthen our communities of practice by participating here in this conference. All right, so let's discuss community and communities of practice. since we're all on board here to and all part of this community of practice here in our conference, let's discuss a bit about what makes a community of practice. So a community of practice is a group of people like us who have an interest, passion, or concern in common and come together to learn more about it. Here we are. As the name suggests, communities of practice collaborate and communicate, sharing knowledge between one another as a community. Here we are, right? Here we are as presenters, as people who are participating to receive the knowledge and sharing our ideas, perspectives, and experiences. So we create and we share this identity that's built around our common interests, in this case, supporting English language learners and other English language educators. So according to social anthropologists Jean Lavey and Etienne Wagner, to qualify as a community of practice, there really need to be three essential elements that define community of practice from just a kind of regular group of friends or acquaintances. So the first is domain. So for a community of practice to work, individuals in the group have to have a shared interest or a domain of interest. Of course, here ours is, as I mentioned before, supporting English language learners and other stakeholders. The second is community. So members need to actively create a community in their chosen domain. So community can take many different forms and varies, right, according to the resources and potentially even the subject. So these activities can include face-to-face meetings, social media groups, discussions, webinars, WhatsApp groups, other kind of group activities, so they can happen synchronously or asynchronously. So a great thing about being alive today in the 21st century is we have more tools than ever to connect, right? To connect with people locally, across the state, nationally, internationally, across time zones. So this is just no better time than now to create and cultivate and to participate in communities of practice. And the last element that turns a regular group of colleagues into a community of practice is that we need to be practitioners in the domain. So simply put, members of the community of practice work towards a shared goal of learning how to do things better and to further our knowledge in that domain. So we generate ideas, resources aimed at improving our knowledge within that domain. And I would also say our practice should include a space that facilitates our focus on the process, right? Focus on the understanding that we need to support each other in order to have a habit of professional development that occurs over the long term, so that we can continue to develop with the support of our communities of practice in order to achieve the results that, let's face it, they take time. So we can engage in a community of practice in a variety of ways. And I like to consider each of these domains as a way to develop leadership. So, for example, as a receiver or a cheerleader, right? We can participate in communities of practice activities by encouraging members in the community. We can do this through our participation, through thanking, through showing our gratitude and appreciation, to sharing how the resources, the exchange, the involvement in the community is making impact in their lives and in others. Another is as a sharer or a connector, right? So to engage as a sharer, connector, we can research and share resources that address the unique and immediate needs of members within the community of practice. And finally here, as producer or an evaluator, right, of content and events. So when we're ready and in different ways that align with our interests and our expertise, we can produce, right? We can produce content, whether that be through activities or lesson plans or professional development kind of opportunities, as well as those who have done that and can look at what we produce to give us feedback. So in all of these different ways, we can develop, right, leadership, and we can do this in depending on, again, on our interest, on the topic. We can provide leadership in these different ways. So if you could put in the chat, what leadership role do you think you can apply within our Sunshine State TESOL conference? It can be one role, it can be two roles, it can be three roles. But let's start to think about how we want to contribute and develop our capacity for leadership within our conference. So if you could, please type that in the chat. So I also want to say that communities of practice and engaging in communities of practice for professional development creates a virtuous cycle, right? It's a virtuous cycle of inspiration and motivation that continues to encourage a growth. So I found that when I do this, opportunities arise that lead to additional ways to connect, right? To connect and learn and share with people in my local community as well as people internationally. And these professional relationships that I've made through communities of practice that I engage in have also created another key component to my professional growth, and that is accountability. So having someone or a group of people that we can collaborate with, towards accomplishing a goal provides additional motivation that helps me to push myself, right, beyond my comfort zone. We sometimes call this procrastination, but it also helps me to cultivate a growth mindset. And I also must add that I don't separate professional growth from personal growth. I found that really a direct correlation between the two, with well-being being at the center. If I can take care of myself mentally, spiritually, physically, I have the energy, I have the inspiration to envision really how I would like to continue to grow. We have so many opportunities and so many avenues, and taking the time to really just center and connect with who we are, where we want to go, and helps really just to align and help to ensure that we're on that path, as well as to reflect on how we can not only support ourselves, but support those around us, because we're in this together, right? With our families, our friends, our communities, both within work and outside of work. So the more that we can have a balance and attend and cultivate those different aspects of well-being, the more energy, the more clarity, the more inspired that we can come in our lives, again, both professionally and personally. So here's just a short list of some ways that we can connect with communities. And again, I provided some hyperlinks here on this form that you can explore these all on your own time. But one is TESOL International's TESOL affiliates. So Sunshine State TESOL is one such TESOL affiliate. But wherever you are in the United States, and really wherever you are globally, there's usually a TESOL affiliate that you can connect with. And once you're connected with TESOL International, you can find TESOL COPs and interest sections. So for example, I've been part of teacher education as well as intercultural communication interest sections for years. And my interaction, engagement, collaboration with my colleagues in those interest sections has been life-changing, right? Both professionally and personally. Also courses and workshops, just as an example that I provided a link to there, are courses and workshops that are sometimes available free of charge. So I provided a link to the work that I do with my colleagues at IPDE of Florida that generally focus on adult ESOL, but those ESOL courses that are offered through IPDE are really relevant and helpful, I think, to any educator of ESOL colleagues, right? Just forming a community of practice within your own school, within your own community, within your own network. So just reaching out to a handful of your colleagues, maybe new colleagues that you meet in this conference, and asking them, hey, can we meet once a month? Just to talk about certain things, to talk about general things, but just to create a conversation and an opportunity for exchange, for ideas, for the synergy to happen when you are engaging professionally within a community of practice. And finally, publish, right? So we can publish, we have publishing tools that are available to us now where we can create content, we can share resources, we can develop our own expertise by supporting others. And I provided a link there actually to a newsletter that I publish that does such a thing, that is really to share resources and to fulfill kind of a passion of mine as a teacher educator, and that's to support other members of my community of practice, such as yourself. So just some ways to connect with communities. If you could, in the chat, if you could write, what is one way that you connect with communities of practice? Is it through an affiliate, through TESOL International? Is it through an interest section? Maybe through courses and workshops? So if you could list out ways that you interact and engage with communities of practice in the chat. Okay, so I'd like to bring us back now to where we are here in this conference, and I'd like us to start to focus on how we can be more mindful in our participation within the Sunshine State TESOL conference, to really take advantage of this opportunity that we're taking the time for, to make connections and to cultivate communities of practice that are going to serve our goals. They're going to serve and support the goals of our colleagues, and of course to serve our students. So we're going to do this through an activity called mindfulness. So mindfulness, one definition is presented here, and that's paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So as we can see from this definition, mindfulness can be exercised in many different ways, through breathing, walking, cooking, playing, music, conversation, how we teach, but in a more intentional and meta way, where we take the role of the observer of our actions, emotions, and the world around us. So it's from this vantage point that we can begin to see more clearly the bigger picture and meaning, right, of ourselves, our work, our creative solutions to life's challenges. So I think it's also helpful to provide a bit of rationale for mindfulness and just understanding of how it works. So mindfulness really starts to take a more internal focus. So much of our day-to-day is on being kind of busy, right? And we can see in this image here, these different brainwave patterns. And generally, we can either be in a gamma or a beta brainwave state, especially when we're engaging in work. For example, in this presentation, right? I am concentrating here on providing this presentation. You're concentrating, hopefully, on listening to me. So when we're teaching or we're doing kind of work, we can be in this gamma or beta. Now, when we start to get into a more internal focus through focusing on our breath, focusing on the space around us, being just more aware, right, of these things that generally are done automatically, we can stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system. And so this parasympathetic nervous system is really our rest and restoration state. So this is where we say, okay, we're not focusing on something specific here. We're opening up, we're expanding our awareness. And when we start to see the bigger picture of things, and when we can see the bigger picture of things, we can start to see how things connect. We can start to see areas where we might be a little bit out of balance, right? See some areas that we are appreciating and feel that we're doing well. And really just kind of to get a better understanding of saying, okay, where are we in whatever we're focusing on, whether that's life or our profession or learning. And when we can do this, we can see the bigger picture, where we can take care of ourselves really, and take a moment to relax, to breathe, just to be in the present moment. This inspires, right? This inspires well-being, and it can inspire growth, inspire creativity. So I'd like for us to engage in a mindfulness practice as we are entering a space here in this conference that really is all about inspiration, right? It's about connecting, communicating, focusing, being more mindful of our teaching practice and our professional development. Okay, so before we engage in this mindfulness practice, I just want to give you an overview here of what the protocol is here. In this case, it's Mindful Professional Development Protocol. And I'm going to ask you to relax. You can have your eyes open or closed. You can sit down or lie down. I always prefer lying down, just that seems to stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and restoration state. But if you want to sit down, even if you want to keep your eyes open, that's okay. And we're going to have an awareness of our breath, of our emotions, of our body. We're going to focus on our breath, and then we're going to reflect and observe non-judgmentally. I'm going to give you some questions here to reflect on. And we're going to engage in visualization, right? Again, openly, not limiting ourselves, just observing what we see, what we feel, non-judgmentally. And then we're going to engage in some sharing. Again, non-judgmental sharing, right? So putting it out there. This is a safe space. We can promote that safe space by just being open and just by listening, all right? Okay, so I want you to please just get in a comfortable position. I want you to relax and just listen. Listen to the space around you, non-judgmentally. Just observe how you're breathing. Again, non-judgmentally, just observing. Just observe how you feel. How you feel emotionally, how you feel physically. I want us to just take a deep breath in through our nose, into our belly, and out through our mouth. Another deep breath in. Just observe how we feel. Just relaxing. Again, no judgment here, just being present. Bringing some relaxation to any place we might be holding tension, whether that be in our legs or our belly or lower back, our shoulders, our jaw. Getting into a space where we can reflect and envision. Now, as we stay in that space, I'm going to ask you some questions that are relevant to our experience here at the Sunshine State TESOL virtual conference. What is one area where you could share your expertise with other ESOL professionals during the Sunshine State TESOL conference? Again, non-judgmentally, the first thing that comes up, the first couple of things that just pop up. And what is one area that you would like to expand your understanding during our conference? And finally, I would like us to envision, to see an outcome of sharing your expertise, expanding your expertise, and connecting with other professionals during the conference. What is an outcome of this? And how does this feel? Slowly, if you have your eyes closed, you can open them. And at your pace, I'd like you to share the following in the chat. So, share one area of expertise, right? What is one area of expertise that you would like to share with others in our conference? So if you could type that in the chat. One area of expertise to share. Next, what is one area of expertise to expand your understanding of how you would like to expand your understanding? What is one area for growth? All right. Finally, what's one outcome of this experience? And how does it feel? So as you're completing your participation, your contributions in the chat, I want to thank you for contributing. And I want you to keep these in mind, right? What is something that you want to share? What is something that you want to grow, an area that you want to grow and you want to seek professional growth? And always keeping in mind what is an outcome of this, right? And keeping an eye towards manifesting that in a way that's going to make you feel more inspired, more motivated in the work that you're doing, as well as in your personal life, all right? How is that going to make you feel and just contribute to you as a wonderful parent, spouse, friend? All of these things are connected. And how can we create this virtuous cycle of professional and personal development so we can continue to grow, right, throughout our lives, knowing that we have the capacity to do that in our personal and professional lives, and how that's going to continue to support who we are, as well as those that we love that are in our communities. Okay, everybody, just want to thank you so much for your time, your attention. I look forward to engaging with you throughout our conference. I hope to see you at some of my workshops, presentations throughout the conference. I really look forward to seeing some of what you have to share with our community of practice here at the Sunshine State TESOL virtual conference. Thank you all so very much, and I wish you just an amazing conference and an amazing year.